Welcome to Decision Space, the only show to take place right here in the space between the turns in your favorite games. I'm Paul Solomon.
I'm Jake Friedman.
I'm Pete Wissinger.
I'm Brendan Hansen.
And this is the podcast about decisions in games.
And this is a super exciting episode because we're going to be sharing the start of our epic journey, counting down each of our top 10 favorite games. So on this episode, all four hosts are here, and we will be doing each of our number 10 game of all time, 2026 edition, up to number 6. And it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be good. I promise that I'm not just doing a rehash of last year. I got new games in the list, and I can't wait to talk about them.
New games, old games, hopefully all great games. But before we get into that countdown, we want to say that it is possible that as you're listening to this episode, Decision Space will have been nominated for a Golden Geek Award. We're really hoping. So if that is the case, please do consider going over there to boardgamegeek.com and clicking Decision Space as your vote for best podcast. It would mean a ton to us. And I don't know, if we're not nominated, then you could go to that same post, leave a comment saying how we got robbed.
It'd be pretty awkward at that point. But
yeah, maybe I could edit it out, but
you gotta think we were nominated last year, and the show's only gotten better.
Year before.
So it's many times. So I'm gonna put a little money. I'm going to Kalshi, and I'm gonna figure out if I can bet on this thing.
Let me check the betting. Let me go see what the odds are on.
Absolutely. While you do that, let me get into some other material. We always like to thank our patrons here on the show. They make this show possible and help us live our best lives. And we have a few new patrons to shout out. Christopher Fink, I believe is your name. Zoctal just became a member. Thank you so much to you. And Explorer just became a member. Thank you to you as well. And also Alec 10, I believe might be your name. Thank you so much to the three of you. And lastly, we have a review to read. Anytime we get a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, etc., we like to read it out on the show. This one says, I don't see the number of ratings here, but this one says, felt like I was one of the guys. After your April Fool's game show episode, I felt compelled to leave a review. It was the perfect episode to brighten a long drive. I started listening regularly not that long ago after cherry-picking some episodes based on their titles, and now I look forward to every Wednesday when a new show drops. Even if I've never heard of the Deep Dive Game of the Week, it's still awesome to hear conversation revolve around how it tickles the brain, and as an aspiring designer, how those concepts and decisions-making thoughts can be applied to my own projects. This podcast is definitely one of the best in the board game space, pun intended, for its fresh and engaging concept. And it seems like all the hosts really have fun. Many thanks.
Thanks for the review, Music and Meeples. I'm glad that it sounds like we're having fun. You know, we're good actors.
And if you join our Patreon, you can see our faces on the videos that we pre-release, and you can tell whether or not we're actually having fun or not.
Also, patrons get access to our pre-show. And for example, we recorded for almost 30 minutes before starting this episode, where we counted down our 20 to 11 top games. So if you're curious what just missed our top 10, you could become a patron, and that video is posted, and you can see, what maybe could be on there next year, what has fallen down, get a little sort of behind the scenes of the list that goes with the list we're about to record.
Talk about exclusive content here. And before we dig in, I want to take a sec for all of us to talk about how we prepared our lists, because I think we did this a little bit different than we did in prior years. I'm just going to tell you how I did it last year. I used the PubMeeple ranking system, as many do, and I threw in a bunch of games that were in my collection around 50. I ranked my top 50, and each time I had a comparison. Sometimes it was obvious, and when it was hard, I asked myself 3 questions. One is, which one is a better game design? 2 is, which one's a better representation of my design aesthetic, the kind of games I like? And 3 was, which one do I want to play more right now? And if you got 2 or 3, then you would advance. But this year, I freed myself up. I allowed myself to be a little less 10 best games of all time and more my current 10 favorite games. So when things would come up, a lot of the times it was mostly informed by my most recent play and especially informed by which one am I excited to play again right now. How about you guys? How'd you rank?
So for me, I had a new criteria this year, which is that just kind of like you, trying to be a little bit less precious about sort of some kind of all-time list. Uh, I said that a game was not eligible for my list this year if I did not play it in the last year. So that means that games that maybe previously have been some of my favorite games of all time, if I did not get them to the table in the last 365 days, then it couldn't be on the list. I also did not do a pub meeple just because that takes a long time and gets kind of tedious. So this is maybe more of a vibesy type list. And also a game was not eligible if I only played it once in the last year. So these are all games that I played multiple times within the last year.
Yeah, I think that's illegal not to use pub meeple at all. I think like
I agree.
that in my opinion, like it's just kind of casting doubt on the whole process of your
Oh
list.
my
for me,
gosh.
actually. Yeah.
That's right. It
Um,
doesn't have that sort of like bracketed
That
substantiation.
cachet, for
And they
me,
did sponsor the episode.
that's right. I used like a peer-reviewed, rigorous type of study to determine my own best games, which was to do a pub meeple ranking. But similarly to Pete, I also gave myself some rules that I haven't used in the past. I didn't. Similarly, I don't have anything on this top 10 that I didn't play in person this year. I tried to really emphasize games that I want to play on the table and go against things where I'm like, if I'm primarily going to play this online, like last year I had small spoilers like Magic the Gathering, but I primarily play that on the app, so I didn't want to have that on this list either. So that was sort of some extra criteria besides my normal process, which has always sort of been like, which of these 2 games on the Pub Meeple do I want to play more right now in 2026?
Y'all are meticulous. I took a trip to the decision space, sat in a cold, dark room, and just built a list in my head. I just thought, what is my list of my top 20 games of all time?
Was it the
make
same
sure my
method as
list-
last year, would you say?
last year I did a pub people. But this year I felt what came to me. And I considered both games I love and have loved for an enduring amount of time, and also games I love right now that might not stand the test of time, but are games I really love right now. So you might see some of that. Maybe a third of the games are kind of that way, but we'll see. So I don't know if Pub Meeple is science. I took the art path.
Yeah, humanities list all the way.
I actually had I went on to like my favorite AI tool and had them do a little analysis of Jake on Decision Space episode, and kind of went with that as my primary.
They know you really well. They know you better than you know yourself.
And that platform
right.
was Palantir. Palantir made Jake's list.
Okay. All right. Well, if that hasn't got people to turn off this episode already, maybe my number 10 pick will. So should we
Let's
get
do
to
it.
it, y'all?
Yeah.
All right. Number 10, I went with a game that I've literally only played one time. I really thought hard about whether this was an okay thing to do and decided, you know what, it's my list. Pub Meeple told me that it's true. It must be true. I will be honest, I did juge my top 20 this year in a way I hadn't in the past. And I thought about moving this down for that reason alone. But at the end of the day, I decided to keep it as a favorite game for wanting to play this year. So Pete, I played this game with you at Gamers Ranch. I'm wondering, do you have any guess of
We
what
played a
this
lot
could
of
be?
games at Gamers Ranch.
Yes.
Is that did we only play it once and it's the only time you've played it?
Correct.
It's not Old King's Crown, is it?
No, it's not. But it is Fives by
Oh, hell yeah.
Great game.
Amazing.
I came away from that weekend just thinking about my favorite plays, and I really think it may have been this very simple card game. So if you're not familiar with Fives by Taiki Shinzawa, it is a simple trick-taking game and it's in the genre of trick-taking where it's like it's trick-taking but just this one thing, versus some of the more out there riffs on the trick-taking genre. And the one thing in this game is that on the back of every single card is the magenta 5. So a 5 of a certain suit that you can choose to play any of your cards face down as that suit. And that's pretty much the wrinkle. The other thing I love about this game, one thing that I love about games, period, is it allows you to sort of build two different strategies. So everybody's trying to win essentially a bid. You're trying to score 25, so winning a trick with cards that add up to 25. And I love the feeling of playing this and like seeing, okay, if I win with this and then this and then this, that would add up to 25, and then things go differently, and I'm like recalibrating my plans over the course of the game. So it felt like, that's just something I love in these trick taking games, where it feels like I'm sort of pursuing different strategic paths. It's not like putting all my chips on black right at the beginning and then trying to achieve that. I think it's funny. I think it's incredibly clever, super easy to learn, and just a joy to play. I can't really say why it's so awesome that having everybody have access to magenta 5s all the time makes trick taking rock, but that's what I came away from this play thinking, of just like, somehow that makes it awesome.
So this does one of those cool things trick-taking games do, which it doesn't make you bid, but it makes you play your hand in a specific way that is akin to making a bid, right? Like
Precision
maybe a little bit more precision play, a little flexibility. I just want to say that trick-taking took a hit on my list this year because of the rules I imposed, because I tend to play trick-taking games like, a bunch of different ones. So saying that I had to have played it this year and I had to have played it more than once was very bad for my trick taking playing being represented in my top 10. But yeah, Jake, that's a killer pick. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Killer.
Yeah. I love the sort of like press your luck, almost blackjack style. Get to 25, but don't go over. That's really satisfying. Cool. I'll go next here. Well, there's a lot of games that of course, as you're in the middle of ranking, you think, God, I should have added that. So I have some honorable mentions that I'll try to recall and add in here later. But my number 10 is a game that was quite high last year. I'll have to figure out where here in a minute. It was number 6 last year. Now it's number 10. And that game is Lunarchitects by Daniel Cunningham. This is also a stand-in for Glenmore 2 Chronicles, which I do own as well, and I'm probably somewhat more likely to get to the table. They're basically the same game. Lunarchitects uses Hex Grid. The other one uses Square. But this was actually my first Kickstarter game that I ever backed, and that's part of the reason I love Lunarchitects so much over Glenmore 2. But the idea here is you have a tableau that you're building in front of yourself, and you have like Scotsmen in Glenmore 2 or astronauts in this game, and you're on a time track moving as far forward as you want to claim a tile. So it's sort of a ratchet style game. You can go as far forward as you want. The person in back goes next. And the placement rule is you have to place next to one of your meeples, next to your astronaut. And it's incredibly challenging logistical problem. You also have to match the roads or the river, etc. But as soon as you do that and you are able to put this thing down, you activate the tile, and you activate every tile that is touching that tile. And this chain reaction is so satisfying on every turn. And there's lots of different strategies. You can sort of play a resource strategy. You can get a lot of astronauts. And then the scoring happens when everyone has completed a lap. And that's typically related to bringing your meeples home, which sort of forces you to close down your ability to build and race home at the right time, having some special tiles, and then having another type of resource. It's really, really, really cool. A very Paul game. And, I hope to show it to some decision-aughts at Geekway to the West. That's my number 10, Lunarchitects.
I'd love to play that one with you. I'm a big fan of the Glenmore 2 system. So, yeah, hopefully, if a game is firing at Geekway, dude, make sure to look around, look right, look left, because
Yeah.
I'd love to jump in on that.
And two more little additions here. It has a couple little design elements that I have sort of taken as pets. One is that in the solo game, it just uses 2 dice, which you roll to see how far forward they go to claim a tile. It's pretty easy to execute. But the nice wrinkle here is one of them is a standard d6. And so it will perhaps move up very fast, but it will prioritize taking the special good tiles. So that forces the player to jump up really high. The other one, though, has like 3 1s, 2 2s, and a 3. So it makes these smaller jumps, and it sort of represents 2 styles of players while being really simple. And then the other one, which I won't go into much detail, is sort of in Clans of Caledonia as well, a very simple buy-sell market that has fluctuating prices in a really clean way. Pete, you've played it.
Yeah, very few games have made me feel as dumb as the first time playing that with you and Tommy, who both have played it a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was working twice as hard to achieve half as much in that game, but it definitely was a brain-burning puzzle, I will say.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll go, and my number 10 is up 1 spot. This was number 11 last year. And this is PAX Renaissance. PAX Renaissance is got dinged. It maybe would have been higher on my list, but I only played it online this year, which made me almost wonder if it should be ineligible from the list. But I played it 5 times on Board Game Arena, 0 times on the table. But this is a heavy historical game using what's called the PAX system. Maybe the most popular game in the PAX system is Cole Wehrle's PAX Pamir. This game takes place during the Renaissance. The players represent Renaissance bankers. And ultimately what this is it's a heavy tableau builder. You've got a map of the Mediterranean, and players are acquiring cards in this PAX market, which is a market where it's got a sort of dynamic pricing where the further down the row you want to buy, the more expensive it is, cards river down. And these cards represent all sorts of elements of Renaissance Europe, and not just Europe, the Eastern Mediterranean as well. These could be individuals, these could be groups of people, these could be ideas, they could be whatever. And you're building this tableau, and then occasionally you'll run the operations in your tableau, which lets you combo a bunch of actions together. I tried to think of a favorite decision in each of these games. And my favorite decision in PAX Renaissance is the decision of what victory condition to work towards. Because one of the cool things about this game is that there's 4 different victory conditions. And there are cards in the market that when you purchase them, you choose to activate one of the victory conditions. So this is a game where you can kind of push hard for a specific victory condition. But if someone else chooses victory conditions before you can get to them, you might not actually be able to win that way. So this is a game where you have to be able to pivot or to sort of manage your economy wisely so you can activate a victory condition as soon as it pops up. This is one of the heaviest games on Board Game Geek in terms of weight. And it's mostly just because I think of how opaque it is. And these cards are so dense with information and actions. And it's just an incredible, fun design. I do not recommend you necessarily buy this game because the designer, Phil Eklund, is kind of a trash person. But very interesting game that I definitely recommend giving a shot on Board Game Arena, or maybe buying it secondhand, perhaps. But it's just one of the coolest historical games that I have played. I recommend listening to the episode I did about this game where I had Professor Andy Nealon, who's a professor of games and a big fan of historical games on the show for a chat about historical games and this one in particular. So that's my number 10 this year, PAX Renaissance.
Yeah, I think second the recommendation for the episode, because I had no interest in this game whatsoever, and then I listened to it and like, dang, sounds kind of cool, which is about the highest praise I could possibly give for an episode of Decision Space.
That episode definitely had the effect of, wow, the two people talking about this love this. That sounds fun for me. But it also just sounded fun in a lot of ways because I think games that do this, Pete, that have this sort of player agency over scoring objectives, but there's also a game of chicken where any turn that you're not picking a scoring objective, you could be making progress towards one. So you kind of want your opponent to pick the one that you want them to pick. I think that's just like recipe for a very interesting decision space that you can do a lot of different things with. So that alone, I am intrigued. So my number 10 game of all time, I get to talk about an oldie, but a goodie, I think, obviously, and that is Chicago Express. Or you might call it Wabash Cannonball, or you might call it a Cube Rails game. So Chicago Express is a 2007 Cube Rails game. I think pretty much the first Cube Rails game.
It's
sort of
definitely
agreed
like
upon.
the archetype of a Cube Rails game, I would say.
Great. I will not thank you, Pete, for saving me from commenting about things I don't know.
And the designer, I think, if this is not the first Cube Rails game, this designer definitely sort of created Cube Rails as a genre.
Sure. So Chicago Express, very simple game. Map of the United States from the East Coast over to Chicago. There's 4 different train companies that everyone is going to share ownership of. And the trains are trying to get over to Chicago, where this is shared sort of stock game where companies are going to produce a certain amount of dividends that they pay out to players. You're sharing ownership. You are moving by placing these cubes representing the trains laying track, moving westward. And on your turn, you just get to choose, do you want to auction a share of a company? Do you want to expand one of the companies across the board through different terrain to cities, which will increase their dividends, or maybe improve a hex, which is to say, make something more valuable that's already on the board. And I think that for me, Chicago Express just is very rules light for the type of game that it allows. And is amazing in that it rewards repeat play. There's auction elements. I think many auctions really reward repeat plays, but it's always dramatic. And I think there's a really fascinating arc. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's flexibility within a bunch of different rounds within the game. But ultimately, it can only push or pull in one direction so much because there's this cool system where a certain number of every action can be used in a round. But essentially, if enough actions of these different types get used, it automatically ends. So you end up with these different shaped games that don't go fully off the rails, but all feel like they have their own arc. So for me, Chicago Express just packs an enormous bunch. And that's why it's my number 10 game of all time. Oh, and if you want to listen to more on it, you should listen to episode 127 of Decision Space.
I played this game for the first time this year. I had a really good time with it, except for the teacher was the only person who had played it before, and they just stomped the rest of us. And so that hurt a little bit. But I played several Cube Rails games for the first time this year, and I think my favorite one was Iberian Gauge, which I definitely recommend seeking out as well. But this one was definitely gave you all of those like juicy stock game with minimal rules kinds of things that you really want.
Yeah. Awesome. I have not played this one, but I just want to touch briefly. One of my honorable mentions is a train game that Pete and I just played called Lightning Train. It's a sort of bag building thing. And I forgot to put it on my list. But if I had, I want to play this probably the most of any game right now. And so it could easily have gotten to my top 20.
Sweet. Awesome, y'all. I wish I was the kind of person that could just like love Chicago Express because it feels like the kind of game I should love. But we're gonna be positive because we're talking about the top 10 greatest games of all time. So let's roll right on to number 9 for me, and it is a splatter spelling game, Bus. My number 9 game. I went on a journey with Bus. I played it several years ago, and I had like something that's like often a death knell for me in appreciating and enjoying games, which is that I won the first time I ever played it, didn't understand what was going on the whole time, and because I won the game and I was like not really having that great of a time playing it, like it didn't instill any kind of drive in me to like go back and play it more.
It didn't provide the sort of like shame that would fuel you to keep going and learning the game.
Well, like, yeah, right. Maybe if I had lost the game, and it's like, okay, there's clearly something I'm missing. And instead I won it and I was like, okay, that's actually everybody else who's missing something about this game. And so then I fast forward to this year, and my co-host Pete and co-host Brendan are playing it online and really enjoying it. So I thought, okay, if we're going to cover the show, I'll give it a shot again. And then the most amazing thing happened, which is I started getting just absolutely smoked at it. And then I was like, okay, there is something going on here, which, I probably knew. Had a great time playing it at Geekway on the table again, and then continued playing a bit online, and finally won my first online game of it, and had what was just like an incredibly validating, fulfilling win.
Uh-oh. Well, I guess we'll see what we're going to do here.
The YouTube dream dies.
We'll be able to edit this anyhow.
Well, yeah, I can certainly edit the podcast, but the whole YouTube idea is that things not be edited.
They get
we
the
can
inside.
keep it going.
Sure. I'd be up next, so why don't I hop in?
Yeah, well, no, he's back.
Oh, well,
back. Sorry.
Listen, YouTube is going to just get the real thing, This is hello, YouTube. Welcome to unedited video content. Jake,
very
you were
very
talking
nervous about what's happening with this recording. Okay, yeah, I was talking about Bus. So anyway, I had a great, came full circle with it. Basically, if you're not familiar with Bus, it's one of like the earliest. One of the games that stakes a claim is like a very early worker placement thing. Essentially, you're doing a pick up and deliver game with just some like very simple key action spaces, and then most prominently among them is sort of the action that makes the game, which is that you can, aside from picking up workers, delivering them, putting out different shops on the board that you'll be delivering the people to, you could stop the space-time continuum, which can just throw everybody's plans awry in a very funny way. So there's like a great sense of humor, very, very skill testing, and all the kind of like spiky stuff I didn't understand and like at the beginning. Now that I've played it a few more times, that's like, it's starting to like get those spikes of like understanding as I play. Like, okay, normally you're only using a few workers, but what happens if somebody chooses to use a bunch in a single turn? I've just come to appreciate it more and more. So that is my number 9 game for 2026 favorite games.
Bus. Cool. Probably not a game I would love. I just played my first Splatter game, which was the great
Zimbabwe,
which, that's a game. So my number 9 is exactly number 9 from last year, and that is Bruno Faiduti and Alan R. Moon's Ink and Gold. This is my favorite push-a-luck game of all time. It plays incredibly well from 3 to 8 players. My favorite thing about the design is how smoothly and simply and effortlessly it balances for player count. A brief summary. You have a deck of cards representing a temple that you and the other players are exploring at the same time competitively. And in that deck, there's cards from like 1 to 17. And also about half the deck is bad stuff. There's 5 different types of bad stuff and 3 of each. So everybody's in the temple. You flip over a card to reveal, most likely, hopefully, a bunch of gems. Maybe there's 6 on there. Then we all split up the gems as much as we can equally and put them in front of our little tent. But the remainder goes onto the card. So if there's a lot of players, you can have much higher remainder sitting on that card. And then we all make a simultaneous choice. 1, 2, 3, are you in or out? And if you're in, then you stay in this thing and you push your luck a little farther. If you go out, it is the only way to score your points, like a lot of these push your luck games. One of the big twists, though, here is that whoever goes out claims the remainder that was left on the card, sort of running back through the temple and yanking all those things. So if you play with 8 players, those pile up quite a bit, incentivizing people to leave the temple. And what inevitably happens in these games is they boil down to 1 or 2 people trying to push and push and push down this temple, hopefully by themselves, because if they flip that 17 all by themselves, they get all the magical coins or gems for themselves. And then at some point, of course, you have to bank. The bad thing is that if you flip one of these, the possible busting mechanism, if you flip one of these bad cards, the first time it's just scary. But if you flip another one of the same type, it's so scary that you drop all the gems and run out of the temple. And so then you don't score anything. You play 5 times. There's a couple of little twists that changes the content of the temple. There's these artifacts that you put in, and the artifacts are like a lot of points, but you can only get it if you run out by yourself. And so there's some sort of, donkey space, will you, won't you? You can bluff, tell people things, lie. And it has never, ever, ever not been a hit with anyone that I've played it with. So that's my number 9, last year and this year, Incan Gold.
Ink and Gold's amazing because it doesn't take that long to teach, and is also it's always emotional. The stakes of the game are immediate and clear, but also every hand there's an arc. And then the game itself has this interesting arc, and it comes together, I think, to be one of those types of games that is more than the sum of its parts. And then when you add on that you can play 3 to 8 and have a legitimately wonderful experience, it just sort of awe-inspiring how clean of a design it is. It feels like one of the sort of found perfect designs. So I too am a great fan of Ink and Gold.
I think the highest compliment I can give Ink and Gold is that it is a funny game.
That's right.
It is a humorous game. And it's not like the game has jokes, or it's not like,
no,
it just is. People will laugh when they play this game, right?
Yes. I have laughed. The most that I've ever laughed was at Geekway pretty late in the night playing Ink and Gold with 8 players. It is so, so, so fun. So there you have it. My number 9, Ink and Gold.
Okay, so that brings me to my number 9. My number 9 this year is up from 15 last year, so entering the top 10. And this is the only Knizia on my list. Spoilers. And this is Modern Art. I played Modern Art with my game group once in the last year, and I've also played it with students before. In my econ class, I'll occasionally play this game with students. Modern Art is a pure auction game that is sort of like, what if we took a bunch of different types of auctions and put them in the same game and injected a little bit of like interesting hand management and shared incentives in with it. The way this works is that you take turns being the auctioneer. And when you're the auctioneer, you put a painting from your hand up for auction. And that painting has a certain type of auction attached to it. Maybe it's a live auction. Maybe it's a blind bid. Maybe it's a once around auction. And you are sort of building a tableau of paintings. And then when the round ends, you sell the paintings, and their value is based on how many paintings by that artist were bought that round. So it almost has like a stock speculation sort of element to it, because, every time you buy a painting, you're sort of asking the table to please let's sell more paintings by this artist, right? It's, you might get a good deal on something early in the round, and then later in the round, all of a sudden they're the hot artist and you got a sweet deal and everyone else is paying a lot. I'll say my favorite decision in this game is how to be the auctioneer, because this is a game where the winner of the auction pays the auctioneer. And so knowing what painting to put up for auction when, with the sort of style of auction that's available on that card, is actually hugely important. And you are trying to get as much juice as you can. And in fact, you want to give people paintings that they think are valuable, which maybe is like, well, why would you want other people to get points? Well, if someone else can make $10 off that painting in profit and they paid me $30 for it, that's great for me, right? Sure, they're going to make more money off it than me, but I'm getting a huge piece of that pie. And I just love the decisions in this game. And so that's why it's my number 9 game, a very simple auction game, my favorite pure auction game, Modern Art. Paul, you're muted.
Your favorite Knizia game, even.
Also my favorite Reiner. It's true. I think it's
That's
the
right.
Doctor's Best, and it's one of his earliest, I think. This is like a
92.
late 90s game. Or,
Oh, wow.
Early
Wow.
90s, like 92.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I've only played this one time, really enjoyed it. And the thing that I sort of realized is what you just said, that like you really want people to buy the paintings from you. And that's just as important a part of the game as, getting the paintings yourself. And it's really cool. I will say, one of the key prized possessions in my game collection is the rare Oink edition of Modern Art that I have, which is stamp themed stamps, and I won't tell you how much I spent on it, but yeah, really fun game.
Modern Art's incredible because I think it's a rare instance of the incentives of the game really encouraging a social atmosphere that is totally unique. And I don't think it's by accident. The theme helps it. It pushes you in that direction, right? That you're invited to be an auctioneer pushes you in that direction. But what you just said, Pete, right? That like, I need to profit when other people are going to profit off the painting I sold creates this very interesting social dynamic that's not immediately apparent, but sort of organically emerges as every game I've ever played of Modern Art goes on, where people are hustling, they're talking up certain artists, they're being a little bit loose with each other and just sort of being like, I got to get the Carvolo.
Yeah.
And just really talking it up. And it happens every time. And it's because the incentives make it so. And I think that's the brilliance of Knizia, is not always having this amazing thematic pairing that feels evocative of theme in the way that, say, Nemesis does. But it's that he empowers his players to step into a certain incentive structure that encourages their behavior in a really amazing way. And it doesn't get enough credit for what it does. Modern Art is amazing.
I also want to say, I think that the hand management in this game is subtly so important.
It's so good.
I compared it to a stock game, but if so, it's like an insider trading stock game because like I have information about the market because like I might know that I'm holding a ton of paintings by this one artist in my hand. And so I can basically control the supply of this stock essentially. And so other players don't have that information. I do. And so it also just makes you feel really clever, you know, because I can slow roll these paintings in a way that I know is going to maximize my own profit.
Yeah. One of his best card games. Okay. Speaking of card games, my number 9 game of all time is a trick-taking game. Dramatic pause. It's a Fox in the Forest. Fox in the Forest is a 2-player trick-taking card game with 3 suits, special powers on the odd cards, on the odd value cards, but really at its heart is this cool scoring system. If it doesn't have this, it doesn't make it on my list. It doesn't have the impact that it has had on trick-taking in general, and that is that the game is ultimately a tug of war between who's going to win the most tricks or the least tricks in that hand. You're dealt a hand just like every other trick-taking game, and you have to assess from the outset, am I the player who's probably wanting to win tricks, or am I the player who's probably wanting to lose tricks in this hand of cards? If you win 0 to 3 tricks, you are humble. That's a great place to be because you're going to win 6 points. If you score 4, 5, or 6 tricks, if you're sort of in the middle, you don't want to be there. You're scoring minimal points. It's sort of like basic pick-me-up helpers. If you score 7 to 9 tricks, you're victorious. You score 6 points. That's a great place to be too, but it's tricky being there because if you push too far, if you win 10 to 13 tricks, you're greedy and they take all your points away. 0 points for the round, except maybe if you pick up some 7s. But still, I find this decision when I'm dealt a hand of cards in the Fox in the Forest really interesting. Is my hand the hand that wants to win tricks this hand or lose tricks this hand based on what I think my opponent's hand is? And we don't have perfect information. So there's these other cards, these woodcuts that let you get more information, but they might come at the expense of letting your opponent do what they know they already want to be doing, winning or losing tricks in the round. There's points up for grabs in the middle of each game. You can use the powers within the game to swap the trump suit. So it's very dramatic. You can have these exciting late in the hand sort of turns that I think breathe life into what I feel like are often the sort of like I am operating my hand in a more classic trick taking game like spades where the decision's already made. I rarely feel that way in the Fox in the Forest. This is one of my favorite games of all time. And that's why my number 9 game of the year, the Fox in the Forest.
I also adore the Fox in the Forest. I think it's an amazing 2-player trick-taking game. It's another example of sort of precision play where you're trying to do something specific with your hand, but it also is not declared at the start. So as the hand develops, you can start to see whether you think you might be able to tank and lose and force. Because the best thing you can do is lose all the tricks. It's the best possible outcome. And there comes times in the game where the only way for you to stay alive and try to win is to lose all the tricks. That's very cool. My favorite thing in the design space about this game is that your primary objective every hand is you must lose 3 tricks. If you don't lose 3 tricks, you will get no points. And after that, you could try to lose them all, or you could try to lose just the right amount. Losing 4, I think, is the ideal on the winning side. So really cool, and it has great art. There you go.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to our number 8 spot, starting with my pick, which is a Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling game. You knew there was going to be at least one on my list, and this one is up. So the first two were new to me, or new to the list, and this one was on the list last year, but is up 5 spots from number 13 to number 8, and it is Read Nature.
Ooh.
Renature is an incredible game. This is the one that has players using domino pieces with different animals on it to play an area control game, essentially, where you'll be playing domino pieces and then placing different powered resource or different powered player pieces into area control areas adjacent to where the domino went. What I love about this game, which was featured back in episode 102 of Decision Space, is, well, there's many things, but I think one of the things that I'm realizing about myself that I really love in these more strategic board games is like games of chicken, where all over this board people are pushing for different majorities, and it's like if I put one piece, because you want to win the majority by the smallest margin possible. So if I put one piece in there, that's great. I've got one power in there, I'm winning it. Then somebody else comes in, they might put two. Now we're going kind of back and forth, seeing when somebody's willing to back out. And I love that. It's happening all over the board, and the domino color matching means like I don't necessarily know if somebody is able to get into a space to fight me for that, or it might be very expensive for them to do using some of their limited resources. So I absolutely love that. This game also has this incredibly cool and mean area majority rule, which is that if the winning player ties, if there's a tie at the top, then those players are eliminated from contention. Meaning, in most of the areas, I think all the areas, there's a score of a point you can win for first and second. But if the first place and second place person tie, they're eliminated, making it possible that the third place person will get both the points for first and second. So there's a lot of intrigue and drama there. And the last thing I'll say about this game is like it's one of those games that's just like a joy to teach. I love teaching this game because it's so simple, easy, fun. You get a really nice experience out of it, and it plays in well under an hour. It's just a game that continues to grow on me year after year, and one that continues to find the table even in my infrequent opportunities to bust a game off myself and get it to the table these days. So that's Renature by Kramer and Kiesling, my number 8 game for 2026.
That's cool. And I know that I brought you those expansion maps or something a little while ago. Do you like those? Are they good?
Yeah, the expansion maps are really cool. So I'm not a big expansion person at all, but this is one of the few expansions I would say that does see play. And what's really nice about them is that it doesn't add really rules to it, or like for every rule it adds, I would say it like takes something out. So it's not really extra rules, but it makes it so that like when I'm playing the expansion, I'm having fun doing like what that is emphasizing, but I'm also a little bit missing the base game. So like it actually makes me want to oscillate back and forth. It's not like, oh, I always am just going to play with the expansion now. And I think that's a really great place to be with an expansion.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, my next game, my number, what are we on? 8 game, was 18 last year, up 10 spots to number 8. It is a very cool spatial auction game, Skyrise, published by Roxley Games, a re-implementation of Metropolis from 2008, I believe. So this game is really unique, and what it teaches me about my preferences and what my list is this year is a lot of these are designs that I'm just astounded by each time I play. They just feel so unique and clever and cool, and things that I wish I had come up with. In this game, everyone has a bunch of buildings. Perhaps they're wood, perhaps they're plastic, each with a number on the back, no one having the same numbers. And there's a big board of different areas in the city with colored spaces on them and adjacencies. And someone begins an auction by placing one of their buildings down and say, I'll put my 2 here. And they're saying, I will buy this space for 2. Well, that space is not available to anyone else right now, but they can say, that's fine, but I'll take a nearby space for more. So they might put down their 12 on a neighboring space. And then this continues, sort of snaking its way around the board as people claim stake on different spots until eventually everyone says, that's fine. You can have that last final space with the building that you put there. And that stays there permanently. That adds to a little bit of an area control on each of these islands, and it also gives you a little bit of possession or power or presence in a certain color. And that's important because there's a slight stock element to this game. You collect tokens, some of which will increase the point value of different colors. There's also a little different set collection stuff that you can do. Everybody has a special, I don't know what it's called, it's some awesome building wonder maybe, and you get to play that down with some special power, which adds a little bit of variability and timing. It's such a clever design, and the last time I played it, I realized some things. I probably played it 4, 5, 6 times, and I realized something, that I was really overemphasizing a little wrinkle in the spatial auction because it was so novel and cool. But if I focused on some other things, I could come out ahead in other ways. So it's still teaching me things. It's an extremely unique design, and one that I love. It is Skyrise, my number 8 favorite game right now.
I had the chance to play this one at Gamers Ranch as well, and the auction plus spatial puzzle going on, incredibly cool. I haven't played anything else really doing approaching that, and it does it like with a really good economy of rules, like very simple. I did find, and I don't want to be negative, like in my one play, that learning play, that the place was falling short for me is like I didn't feel like there were spaces I like extremely wanted more than other places, which would have like been something that would ratchet up that mechanism and make it shine even more. So I'm curious, like having played it more, do you find that that's kind of like a first play thing, or have you had that similar experience?
There's a couple different things that I find do increase the value of certain spaces. One is like, I know that I need to get my 4th yellow token to increase the price of yellows or whatever. And I'm really trying to claim yellow spaces. So there are some that are more valuable to me, but there's also variable scoring objectives game to game. Like sometimes I want to be on both sides of a bridge. And in addition, I want Brendan to not be on both sides of a bridge. And so that becomes a high stakes element in the game. And sometimes I will just put one of my pieces down on a space, not to try to claim it, but just to try to prevent it from being auctioned off this round, because every space only comes up for auction, so to speak, once each round. And someone says, I'll pay this. And if everyone allows it, so be it. Otherwise, someone claims another space. And then the central island, there's little area majorities for every island, and the central island only has 4 spaces. And so claiming one of those, or especially getting one of your level 3 tallest buildings there, can be really important. Yes, so there you have it. I can understand your experience, however.
All right. So my number 8 has fallen a little bit on my list. This was in my top 5 last year. So this was number 5, fallen down to number 8. And this is Dune Imperium Uprising. Still in my top 10. This game, I think there is a world where this ends up being the number 1 game on BGG. This is designed by Paul Denon and put out by Direwolf Games. And this is a deck building worker placement hybrid game. And the highest praise I can give this game is that I think it does both core mechanisms incredibly well. I've played this game, I think 3 or 4 times on the table this year, all with the new expansion that came out last year, which is called Bloodlines, which was an expansion that I think technically works for both versions of Dune Imperium, but is certainly built more specifically for Dune Imperium Uprising. So this game is based on the Dune Part 2 movie, and it's basically got this system where you are doing worker placement, but the cards that you deck build with tell you which spots you can send a worker to. So when you play a card, you can send your worker to a space that matches a symbol on the card. And then when you've run out of workers, you reveal the rest of your hand and get benefits from the bottom of the cards. And so I think a super smart two-use card system on the cards you use in the deck building. And then I think the magic of this game, or sort of like the star element of the game, is at the end of a round, there's a battle, there's a combat, which really is almost, it's kind of auction-y in a way. It's not like there's some sort of like special battle mechanism. You're just kind of building towards it as the round goes on. And then there's some room for some surprises to happen. And it's an incredibly tight game point wise. Typically, it's whoever gets to 10 points first wins. So you can have some rounds in Dune Imperium Uprising where you get like 3 points, which is insane in a game where 10 points wins. And I think my favorite decision in this game is actually the deck building, because the more I play Dune Imperium Uprising, the more I realize that you kind of dig your own grave in this game. And like we talked about in our deck building episodes from last year, deck building is a mechanism where you are buying a card that will hopefully be useful in the future. So it intentionally requires forward planning for an unknown future turn where hopefully that card comes up in the right hand of cards to help you maximize it. And I think that what's cool about Uprising is that it's got more deck cycling in it. There's more spaces that help you draw cards, more spaces that help you trash cards. So you can end up, with a really sort of like strong engine by the end of it. And it's a game where you don't want to just buy cards just because you can. Like, I find that new players just buy cards that look good without really thinking about how well it fits into their deck. So I think that the skill ceiling is actually incredibly high for this. And I said this last year, I think it's still true. I think if this was not a game with the Dune IP, it was just some sort of original game someone had designed, that it would have even more clout than it does, because I think the system is just like so stinking smart. So it's popular for a reason. I think both versions of Dune Imperium are in the top 10 on BGG, which is a little bit silly. This is my preferred one. And so that's my number 8 game, Dune Imperium Uprising.
How's it going to reach number 1 on BGG when people are already souring on it? Down 6 spots?
Well, listen, I'm just anticipating with the third movie coming out that they'll put out another one that'll totally obsolete Uprising,
I would hope so. Interestingly, this is designed by the same guy who did Lightning Train, correct me if I'm wrong. And
Sure.
it also has that sort of, you have to have access to the region where you want to take actions, which is really, really important in Lightning Train. But I'd say there's a little more work around there. You can sort of buy access if you want. And I also love that game. I was trying to figure out, I'm pretty sure it was in my top 50 last year. Who's to say? We'll find out someday.
Well, speaking of access to the region where you want to do things, my number 8 game of all time right now is El Grande. El Grande is, the area majority game. Just one of the, I think just one of the greatest games of all time. It doesn't outstay its welcome. I think one of the things that impresses me most about El Grande is its ability to hit the table, have a clean arc, dynamically build, give you something new to chew on, even though you've played it 30 times, or in my case, right, however many times I've played it. It has donkey. It has a little bit of something for everyone. It has a cool area majority puzzle. Every turn is a puzzle. Jake can like that. It has donkey space with the Castillo. I really like that. It has really clean math. Paul can like that. And it has everyone fighting on the board. Pete can like that. It has something for everyone. And that's why El Grande remains in my top 10 and remains my number 8 game of all time. This is down from 4. When you go into the deep dark decision space and just think about what should be on your list, maybe it doesn't jump out of the top 5. But number 8 is respectable, and we covered it back on episode 13 of Decision Space. I don't know that I'll recommend you listen, but if you are so inclined, you could.
Well, I'd recommend our episode on area conflict games, where it got a lot of talk this year.
This is true. And I was trying to convince you all to do another episode on El Grande. Just let's go back. Go back to the well. Do some more.
Well, I think I need to play it again and try to give it a more fair shake. I famously have not enjoyed it, despite the three of you absolutely loving it, and I think I owe it another try.
I'm down. Let's do El Grande Part 2. Many years later, and especially if we could get Paul on it, that would be awesome.
With the king and intrigue, right? Right, Jake?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. All right, I gotta calm down a little bit because I am only at number 7 on my list. But I think this is my only Knizia game that made my list this year. And it is up 11 spots from when I did my top 50 last year. And it is Lost Cities, the
Wow.
2-player dueling, card row, lane battling, whatever you want to call it, game of archaeology expeditions. The reason this game is just becoming more and more one of my favorites is because this year's been a little bit of a weird year for me gaming wise. It's been my first year as a parent the whole year, and more of my gaming time has come from at work. I've been like working really hard to build, well, not working really hard, but I've been trying to build a culture of playing games at work, and Lost Cities is such an amazing game for that because you only need one other person. Super easy to teach. You can get a bunch of games in over a lunch period, or how, you got 15 minutes. Perfect. We can get one game in, then eat our lunch and then get to the next meeting, whatever. And on top of all that, when somebody plays it once, they just want to play it again. It's like, it's the number one game. People are like, hey, when are we playing Lost Cities again? And I think one of the kind of magic things about it is it's just so simple and rules light, and it almost feels like it's like when you're losing at the game, if you're inexperienced, it feels like you're just kind of getting unlucky and the other person's getting lucky. But that's not really the case, as we know, having played this so many times. So it is kind of this fun thing where I just tend to like just whip up on people the first time, and then they're just kind of like, wait, how are you doing that? And then they want to play to the point where we can just have these super fun games. I haven't really explained how it works. I think people are probably relatively familiar. You're just trying to win lanes by playing the most numbered cards in those lanes. Basically, you're trying to put as many cards as you can of ascending order, and it's a lot of fun. But I think like the gameplay part that I love about it is just the fact that like I think in Magic and Keyforge and these other like dueling card games, what I love so much is trying to like play with the tempo of the game, where figure out like who's sort of attacking, like when should I be on the attack, when should I be playing defense, when should I be speeding the game up, when should I be trying to like slow it down. And that's all Lost Cities is. Lost Cities is like just a tempo game, and I absolutely love it for all of those reasons. My number 7, Lost Cities.
And the key mechanism here for me is that the discarded cards go to the center of the table and can be claimed by other people, which creates this really tense hand management decision that I really like. Have you played Arboretum? Because it has a similar vibe to me while being prettier and meaner.
I absolutely love Arboretum as well. I'm checking where it is on my top 50 list I have in front of me. It's number 28. So it's another absolute favorite of mine as well.
That one fell for me this year just because I haven't played it much, but I have always really loved Arboretum.
It's possible that if I'd played as much Arboretum as I have Lost Cities, then it would be way up there as well. I haven't had the opportunity to play as much, but yeah, I think it's an amazing design too.
Lost Cities has become my like most played game from BGA this year, and it is so, I think, immediate is one thing I really appreciate about it. And also like you develop heuristics for the game, and then it'll deal you a hand that you're like, oh crap, like if you get like a hand that's like all 7 or higher, and you're like, well, this just kind of makes me want to do, or you have like a ton of handshake cards which double your score, but like no cards of this ones you have handshakes in. It's like, well, I don't want to discard it because they're probably holding all the white cards. And so it's just got these really fun decisions. I also, one of my favorite things to do in this game is just to like pick a row to just like destroy, to be like, don't even bother playing there. I'm not getting points there, but neither will you, right? So to like kind of like bully the board a little bit, like you can just do so much fun stuff to mess with your opponent in the game, in ways that are kind of like almost like push your luck, I would say.
Very cool. My
And I
next
guess we
game.
should say too, like some people love this thing, which is like where you just wish you couldn't do, like you didn't have to do something.
Yeah.
So if like that is something that appeals to you, Lost Cities is on the money for that experience.
Absolutely. Well, my next game, my number 7 game, up 5 spots from last year. It was 12. Now it's 7. Got a Decidee of the year from me a little while ago, and that is Fromage, also known as Formaggio, which is sort of a add more stuff, awesome expansion. This is again an astounding Euro game design. It is so smooth and has some slightly thematic connections that I like. There's a central board, which is a cheese wheel broken up into 4 spaces, and each space is its own little mini game where you are trying to place your cheese wedge blocks to sort of claim spaces in a little area majority game, or maybe a little set collection game, or an adjacency game. All of them are really fun. And interestingly, you play in one, we all play in one separately at the same time, simultaneously. And then after that turn, we spin the cheese wedge, spin the board 1 click clockwise. And so whatever I was dealing with, the person to my left is now dealing with, I can sort of plan for that. And likewise, the thing that is to my right is coming my way next turn, so I can plan for that. In addition to this time element of what's coming, when can I play, I place workers down in spaces that are either bronze, silver, or gold, and those will return to me in some later amount of time. So when I place someone on a gold space, I don't get that worker back for 3 turns of the game, and I may need them 2 turns from now. And so you have this sort of planning decision space going on where everything I do now impacts what I'm able to do later. And are they going to take that space from me? Because I can see the whole board all the time. You can go just about as deep as you want with this game. While it still has a pretty easy teach and light resource system, it's an amazing Euro design. And I hear there may be a third coming. Can't confirm. Won't say any more about it on air, but I love Fromage, my number 7 game. Favorite game right now.
It is a great game, Paul, and I know you sometimes feel like the black sheep on this podcast, so I just want to validate. It's also on
Thank
my
you.
top 50 list. I
Very
think I
good.
put Formaggio, just
Mhm.
because that's the one I played a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I want to play this game more, and I think it's just astonishing. Like I've talked about, kind of like the economy of rules. This is like the economy of time. It is
Yeah.
astonishing how much of a Euro game you get in like a literal
45 minutes probably.
45 minutes, maybe
Yeah.
less, like if you're playing fast and loose.
Yeah. Because it
Yeah,
has some engine building. It has this interactive board state. Very cool.
I know some portion of our audience are game designers. We hear that a lot. And I think if you're a game designer listening to this and have not checked out this system, like you must try it out just to like see what can be done in a simultaneous play space.
And I will just add to that. I think Earth is really renowned partly for its simultaneous play because everybody's involved all the time. And I think that Fromage is doing that in a really more engaging way. So if you like Earth at all for that simultaneity, check out Fromage.
All right. Well, everyone knows that I'm the host that likes to party, which is why I might be the only one who has a true party game in their top 10, right? So my number 7 game was an honorable mention last year, did not make the top 20. But this is my go-to party game that I must have personally sold at least a dozen copies of this game by showing it to other people. And that is Ito. So Ito is a very simple party game that works the way a lot of other party games work. Like if you've ever played a game like Fun Facts or anything that's about like ranking things or whatever, those games are always like pretty fun, but they don't quite hit the way that Ito does. I've played this one on the table a lot. I'm not sure. I brought it to like Christmas with my family and played it with my family. I played it like when we go out to a brewery for game night. I've played it with my students a ton. They like ask me to bring it. The way this game works is very simple. You flip a category card, and everyone gets a card from 1 to 100 with a number on it. And the categories are a scale. So it might say something like um, important days in your life. And a 0 is like a very unimportant day in your life, and 100 is the most important day in your life. And so what you want to do is you want to give a clue that signifies where you are on that scale, and then you put your card face down. And everyone does that with their cards face down. Your goal is to put them in order based on the clues people give, and then flip them up, and hopefully you got them in the correct ascending order. So if I said, for example, kindergarten graduation, and Brendan said the day you got your driver's license, obviously Brendan's would be higher than mine, right? The day you got your driver's license is a more important day than your kindergarten graduation. I think we would all agree with that. But then maybe someone else comes in and says, like, the day you got your first job. And we're like, huh, what's more important, when you got your first job or when you got your driver's license? And then you reveal it. And when you're right, it feels incredible because it's actually really hard when you play with a lot of people. And when you're wrong, it just like leads to these like hilarious debates over whether someone evaluated their clue properly. My favorite decision in the game is just what clue to give. And it's hilarious because once people start giving clues, other people start like amending their clues based on how they think their number aligns with someone else's. They're like, oh, maybe I actually undershot mine, so I need to like throw some adjectives in there. It's just a great time. Like, it's so good. It is. If I were to only have one party game in my collection, it would be Ito. Highly recommend it. My number 7 game.
Well, that sounds awesome. Also, I had a very important kindergarten graduation, so you can't just jump in. No. It sounds great, Pete. And this is the type of game that it always intrigues me, the novel ways in which people find ways to make party games that end up inviting the game to live above the table in a shared knowledge or a shared experience. And ultimately, party games are that, right? Like, how can we gamify our shared understanding and perception of the world outside of this game? And I think that when we say party games, that's what we mean. It sounds like Ito is doing that really well. I want to play Ito. I'm so glad to hear that it is your number 7 game of all time this year right now. Caveat. My number 7 game of all time this year right now is Reiner Knizia's My City. My City is the only Legacy game I feel like I will play this decade. We'll see if that holds. But I have played the Legacy version of it 3 times. It would not be here for that experience 3 times alone, which is that's saying something. There's a lot of games. I think there's 24 games in the Legacy game, so that's 75 plays of the Legacy version of this game. But Reiner Knizia decided to, on the backside of the player board, give you an Eternal game, which is basically just, I made this game. It's 24 different versions of the game that have this arc to them, this progression where rules come and go. We do all these different things. This is just what I think the most distilled version of this game is. And it turns out for me, the Eternal game of My City is like a standalone incredible hit. It is a game that my wife, Maya, and I keep going back to time and time again, and just love it. It's very simple. It's a game about putting polyomino tiles of 3 different colors onto the board, where you are trying to connect tiles of the same color, but they're coming up randomly. There's this sort of deck where you flip a card, and then everyone places the tile that's shown. One tile will not appear in this game, so there's this amazing, hey, you can really plan out your whole game, except if you plan too much, you're going to really regret it, with the one piece you were counting on to pull everything together is the one that's discarded. So that's really fun and sort of tests your desire to plan, but your potential hubris around planning too much. And it's very pleasant. It's very puzzly. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And that's why My City is my number 7 favorite game of all time. Also, this is one of the few board games I've ever played where I felt my heart palpitating when I was playing. Specifically in the Legacy version of the game, we just invested so much time to the point that we got towards the end of the game. It felt, I don't know, the stakes felt high. I really wanted to be the one that got to add the stickers to my board. And I think that's an amazing accomplishment for some cardboard and some instructions from some other human who I've never met about how to spend a few hours of my time. We covered this back in episode 113 and 114 of Decision Space. So yeah, check it out.
I love My City. I have not played it since I played through the campaign, but we played through the campaign, I think, in 3 sessions. We just whipped through them over and over. Incredibly fun. I should probably get back to it. Did not like My Island, but My City, huge hit.
Yeah, I think people like don't. It's like almost a hidden gem in the fact that people don't expect like one of the greatest gateway board games of all time to be like the eternal game on the back of a legacy game. But it absolutely is. At least for me, I've had such great success introducing people to modern board games with the My City Eternal game. So to have that just stapled onto the back of like a legacy experience, if you want that, I would gladly own this game for just that Eternal game alone. All right. Well, we are to number 6, which will be the last of this episode. So make sure you come back next week as we count down 5, 2, 1 for the greatest games of all time of right now of 2026 edition. In my number 6 game, and I will say this, when I came up with my list, like my 7 to 10, really 7 to like 14, it could have gone in almost any order. They were all really close, but my top 6 was like locked in. So this is for sure a top 6 game for me. And Pete, you may be the party guy, but there can be no denying that I am the trick taking guy on this podcast because maybe you're the shedding guy. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. But this is my second trick taking game of the episode. Pete's cat's literally growling at me when I say that. Okay. And it is, maybe unsurprisingly, this was on my list last year. It is up 2 spots, and it is the great Nikosu dice. This game is like kind of on the other side of like the trick taking renaissance, where it's like not just spades with like one thing. It's got a little bit more different stuff going on. This is the one where you roll a bunch of dice and then do a dice draft, and then your dice are cards, but then you also have cards that are cards, and you're playing a trick taking game with bidding, with the incredible rule that your bid is the last die that is remaining in front of you, which I talked about a little bit when I talked about fives, where I just love when the game, I think we called it precision on this podcast, where it allows you to like try and be precise and manage a hand working towards an evolving goal. Maybe you think you're going to only win one trick, but then you win one early and, oh no, you've won a second. And like, can you still make that work? So I absolutely love that about it. And then it has the same fun of being able to kind of like ruin other people's plans because, as I mentioned, the dice in front of them are actually cards, and it is a must follow trick taking game. So perhaps I know Pete is trying to win 3 tricks, but if I play this green card now, perhaps he'll have no choice but to put his hopeful bid into the middle. I think it's still remains my favorite trick taking experience in the sort of trick taking renaissance wave. So that's Nikosu dice. Still love it, and continue to love it each time it gets to the table.
I mean, this is such an incredible game, and I think one thing I love about this game is that the more you play it, the more you can see the depth in it, because one thing it starts with is a draft of dice. And your first time you play it, you're like, I have no idea what to do here. But once you probably play as many times as Jake and I have played it, like that draft is so full of juicy decisions that it's just like, but it doesn't reveal itself until you've played it quite a few times.
Yeah, this is another game that I need to play again. I think what you just described was big piece of my first play experience. Very clumsy for me, and I'm sure that I actually would really like it. Another honorable mention for me that I just completely forgot to even have in my ranking was Tricky Time Crisis that Pete has shared with me. A really interesting, almost semi co-op. It's hard to describe trick taking game. Super, super cool. And Brendan, just a quick note. I do have a legacy game higher in my list, so stay tuned for that next
Ooh.
episode. But my number 6 favorite game of all time, up from 13 last year, my favorite racing game of all time, Heat, Pedal to the Metal. It's not a game that I own. I don't get to play it very much. I have a group. There's a group of 3 of us. We meet maybe once or twice a year, and we have like a campaign going. But this is just a brilliant hand management, card playing racing system. It dethroned automobiles for me, which is an awesome bag building thing, doing some of the same stuff, but the way that the tracks in Heat Pedal to the Metal force you to control your speed and tempo, save cards in your hand for what is coming, is really, really interesting. And this race is, as you would imagine, all about timing and tempo. Because if you miss a turn, and by turn I mean a turn on the track, um, you really feel behind in the race. Like you feel a literal gameplay turn behind. Everybody's making the next curve, and you're still on the previous one. There are ways to catch up, importantly, but the other key element here is you can pull off special effects, let's call them extra bonuses by spending heat. That is sort of revving your engine, pushing it a bit harder, and it puts these clunker cards into your deck. And you only have so much to spend. So there's this resource management and then hand management and deck building on top of it, that sets up these moments whereby you want to be in like second place heading into the last turn of the race so that you can kind of draft and scoot out in front and play your big ramming cards to shoot way out in front. It is so fun in a very different way from a lot of the games that I play. It's incredibly engaging, and it's Heat Pedal to the Metal.
Definitely a fun one. Paul, have you played Flamme Rouge?
I may be making up that I played it, but I definitely was interested in it. I think I have played it once and I did not love it. Um, it has a similar sort of like drafting,
Yeah.
conservation of your energy thing where you're trying to sort of stay in the peloton and then
Right.
scoot up and close things and this is a little bit of that, but I'm sure that I would like Heat more.
Yeah. It's definitely cool. I think we brought it up, Jake, in the like trick taking part 2, or sorry, deck building part 2, as to whether this counts as a deck builder, because every time you add the heat to your deck, it kind of, and you reshuffle, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's like a deck building game, but you don't really want to build your deck, right?
There's a couple things in the expansion that make it more of a deck building game. In the sort of campaign where you're playing through a number of
Oh,
races
cool.
and scoring points, you have sponsors that are doing things for you, and then you add durable cards into your deck that you'll maintain. There's also like in one of the weather expansions, I think, if you like speed through a turn or like do something to impress a crowd as you drive by, you get additional cards that go into your deck for that race and might be one turn effects, and those are really important. So you do build a bit more of a car into your deck in a very fun, cool way.
So that brings me to my number 6 game, which is up from number 20 last year. So this is my biggest climber, right? From 20 to 6. So I guess Ito went from honorable mention to 7. So I guess that might be higher. But coming in at number 6 this year is a game I've already recorded 2 full episodes of the podcast this year about, and that is Arcs from Cole Worley and Buried Giant Studios. This is an incredible space-themed area control sci-fi game that has a really unique trick-taking inspired action selection system. And I don't really need to explain Arcs. I've done 3 hours of podcasting about it already this year, but I've played it quite a bit. I've played the single session game a few times and have completed 3 games of the Blighted Reach campaign expansion, and I am just in awe of this game. It's a marvel. Like, my favorite decision while playing the game is the decisions that are built around the system of having the initiative, which is leading the trick for the action selection, because it does this really cool thing to where if you are following in the trick, you can discard a card to seize the lead, even if you didn't win the trick. And so you can kind of like lose action potential to gain the lead, because if you gain the lead, you can declare an ambition, which is one of the scoring conditions for the round. It's just this incredible, compact system that has such a cool card play mechanism. But the thing I've grown a new appreciation for now that I've completed some extra of the campaigns is just not even just the decisions, but just watching the game evolve. I talked about this in our Blighted Reach episode, but it does this incredible thing to where the players all have this asymmetric sort of story that they're telling, but it is impacting the game state for everybody, what story everyone is in the middle of. And so it's this just like incredibly evocative system. Like, I think Arcs is going to be one of those games people are going to talk about for a really long time. And it's super impressive. So it's made its way up from number 20 to number 6. And I still bring this game out at game night to say, hey, or we could play Arcs. I think my game group doesn't love it as much as me because it doesn't hit the table as often as I'd like it to, because I bring it up a lot as a potential game.
Every time I listen to you and Jared and Analog R&E talking about ARCs, I have like a full-on identity crisis. I'm like, maybe I love ARCs. And I, to the extent that I was like going through it on our Discord with Jared, like maybe I should dedicate 10 hours of my geek way to do an ARCs campaign with you guys. And Jared is like, just as a friend, I can't let you do that to yourself. But yeah, it was an incredible listen. And like, even as somebody, I mean, I've played ARCs once. I didn't have like an experience that made me like desire to return to it a bunch more. Maybe I would, but I was still impressed by it. And like, but even I like listening to the episode can just like appreciate so much about the design of this game, what they were going for as far as like the 3-game arc. And a part of me does maybe someday really do want to experience it, just to have that experience, even if it's not like the kind of like game decision space experience that calls to me as much as some others.
Brendan, I think you know that as soon as the app comes out for this, we're going to play a lot of it.
Yes, I can't wait. I feel like Arcs and Root specifically, though we're not talking about Root this episode, clearly. You didn't bring it up. I'm not bringing it up. No one's talking about Root. But Arcs specifically, when I was listening to you, Jake, to just talk about this episode just happened. So Jake and I are having the rare experience where we're reflecting on listening to Decision Space together on the air of an episode that Pete recorded without us. But there was this moment when you guys were talking. I really enjoyed the episode, and I've never played Arcs. I would love to play Arcs. From the very beginning, when I first saw the art of Arcs, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to experience this. I have not had the opportunity yet. But the way that y'all talked about Arcs reminded me of conversations I would overhear people having about Zelda when I was like 6. Right? Where there's this whole culture and this whole world and all this excitement buried in it, where they're so excited that I'm excited, but I don't know what I'm excited about. And I think that that's a really amazing accomplishment to make a game that has such a specific language, such a specific culture that evokes such powerful feelings in people, or just has such ludonarrative equity that people just walk away saying, I have to tell someone about this. Here's what happened when I was the arbiter or the hegemon or whatever it is, right? So I could completely understand why Arcs P is your number 6 game of all time. So my number 6 game of all time, people say you either love it or you hate it. And in my case, I really enjoy Keyflower. Keyflower is this sort of shared infrastructure game played over 4 rounds, where you start the game by you're given a hand of tiles that are your winter tiles and that you look at, and you plan your whole game around. And you build your own little town that are your own worker placement spots, except other people can use them. But if they use them, they give you your workers. Your workers are also a currency that you will use to take actions. Yeah, like any worker placement game. Grande, they're just an opportunity cost. No, in Keyflower, they're also currency for an auction that's happening that you are using to pull tiles into your own town in the future. So you might bid on tiles because it's a tile that's really important to your strategy. Maybe you're playing this logistics puzzle game around this certain type of resource, and you need to generate a ton of them and then move them across the map. So you want tiles specifically for that. But oh, there's this other tile that I don't care about really, but everyone else will care about it. So maybe I should just bet on that to price people up. And if I win it accidentally, that's fine because people will still want to use it and they'll give me meeples back. Oh, but if I did that too late in the game, maybe that would be a blow up and it would be actually terrible. And there's a lot of then planning around Jake's doing this weird behavior. Does he have this winter tile in his hand that he's ultimately going to play? And that strategy around collecting 5 of these sets of tools is going to be viable for me. Should I push in that direction to keep my options open? Keyflower is a game that just gives and gives and gives. I find the more I play it, the more I enjoy it. It's not a game I need to play 20 times a year, but it's a game where whenever I return to and play, I have an amazing time playing it. So that's why, and I think there's a lot of awesome lessons hiding in Keyflower, and it manages to play in a lot of different genres all at once, while not feeling half baked in any of them. To me, the auction is what makes Keyflower really succeed. To me, the shared action economy is what makes Keyflower really live, and the variable strategic paths are really interesting, as are the tile laying, and the tile building, the tile arranging, and the logistics puzzle. I enjoy all of it. And that's why Keyflower is my number 6 game of all time.
Very cool, unique game. I want to play a lot more in the Key series. I think people are saying that Keyside is awesome. I played Keyflow and owned that, thought that was awesome, and I think there's a lot of more meat there from Richard Breeze.
I made you play Key Harvest at Geekway last year.
I did play that one. We played it together, yeah. Which I think is cool. I think there's a lot of core pieces there I'd like to make a game out of. I think overall, Key Harvest left me a little sad.
So I adore Keyflower, and I think that it would be higher for me if it wasn't for, I don't love the like tile laying to create roads for like a resource moving puzzle thing. That sort of like doesn't do it for me, but like everything else about it super duper does. So, I love the combination of auction and worker placement. I love that you can place your workers in other people's villages, and like they're cool with that maybe because then they're getting the workers for the next round, but also you might be blocking a tile that they bought because they wanted to use it and you're like, I'll use it, right? Like it's just like so sharply interactive in a way that it doesn't look like it is from like the cover and components. I think it's just so cool.
And the worker placement is a simple must-follow trick-taking.
It for sure is. Absolutely.
There you go. He agreed.
And the auction is too. Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
I think as I've started to fall more in love with some of these like old school Euro games, that like perhaps I should give this one another shot. I just looked up that we covered this back in episode 26 of Decision Space, so it has been quite a while since I personally have explored it. And I think like I'm thinking back, I think my criticisms were totally wrapped up in that sort of logistics puzzle that you were talking about, Pete. But yeah, it's one I would love to revisit. Maybe we'll get Brendan out to Geekway next year and we'll make it happen.
I pray.
That would be awesome. Also, the logistics puzzle gets better the more you played it. A complete and total sin of modern board game aesthetic that is actually amazing for a game that you really enjoy because it just keeps getting better. You just have to invest, tens of hours, maybe more, to really engage. Small
awesome.
Ask.
Well, that brings us to the end of the first part of our top 10 series. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much, as always, for Hembry for our intro and outro music. Thank you to all our patrons. Thank you for everyone who comments and participates in the show on Discord. We appreciate it, and we will look forward to having you here next week as we conclude the top 10 for 2026. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.